Today, 7 witnesses took the stand for the prosecution, including Grace's stepfather, who was home with her that day, and a now 9-year-old girl who was playing outside with Grace on the day of the murder. Anthony Hutchins has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and he allegedly told investigators a shadow man was controlling his hands and urging him to strangle Grace in the woods.
The defense is expected to claim insanity, but prosecutors say Hutchins went home, showered, and hid his bloody clothes after the attack. And that shows he was aware of what he was doing and that it was, in fact, wrong.
ABC 57's Naja Woods was in court on day 1 for us and will be there every step of the way. She joins us live outside the courthouse in downtown South Bend. Naja.
Tiffany, Bryant, intensity filled the courtroom today as those witnesses took the stand, including that 9-year-old you guys spoke of. She was squeezing a stuffed animal for comfort before she took the stand for the first day of the bench trial for Anthony Hutchins, that teenager accused of killing 6-year-old Grace Ross nearly 2 years ago. Nearly a dozen family members of Grace Ross filled the seats in the courtroom for the first day of the trial. The teenage defendant, Anthony Hutchins, had the support of his mother in the courtroom. The first day of the bench trial consisted of 7 witnesses testifying for the prosecution, which included statements from a doctor who performed an autopsy on Grace, law enforcement officials on scene the day Grace's body was discovered in New Carlisle near her apartment complex in a wooded area, and a 9-year-old who lived at the apartment complex and was playing with Grace the same day she was killed. The prosecution asking Grace's friend if she was playing with Grace the day she passed away, the 9-year-old saying yes, and that, quote, Anthony was playing with them too in the playground, end quote. She went on to say it was getting late, so Grace walked her about halfway back to her house, and that was the last time she ever saw her friend alive. Grace's stepfather at the time, Matthew Penn, also taking the stand today. He says he was usually the one home when Grace got back from school. He says on March 12th, the day Grace died, she went out to play with her friend Riley, but never returned when it started getting late. He says he started to worry and, quote, alerted her mother Michelle when Grace wasn't there. He says friends and police came rushing to her house to help search for her, and police wound up finding her partially nude body in the woods. And legal experts telling ABC 57 News this week will likely be a very difficult week for testimony for the Grace Ross family.
It's going to be, I think, one of the worst weeks of their lives, but on the other hand, they have what we see some victims' families never have, and that's accountability. They have the person who killed their loved one, and that in itself will provide peace, knowing that that person has been caught and is facing justice, however difficult and however incomplete that justice might seem.
None of those 7 witnesses that testified today were cross-examined by the defense. Now coming up on ABC 57 News at 6, I'll have more on that law enforcement testimony, as well as you'll hear from that doctor. Reporting live in South Bend, Naja Woods.